What up, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Flex Props podcast for Week 17, presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on?
Not much. Happy Thursday. It's so weird not having Thursday night football. I was just mentioning that we're gonna just have a massive Sunday slate for us this week, so can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, and we'll get to our top 10 props of the week, but before we do that, let's start with the Sunday night football showdown slate. We got the Vikings going to Green Bay for a rematch with the Packers. Vikings beat them earlier this year. The line is 6.5, the total 47.5. Could be some cold weather in this game. Sean, what do you think of the captain spot for the slate?
Yeah, it sounds like there's going to be sub-zero weather at Lambeau Field, believe it or not, in late December. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be any winds or anything, but that would certainly add to the concern. But I think that a slate like this where Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, I love using wide receivers in the captain slot, and we have two elite ones here. I think given the weather, it might be kind of sneaky to pivot to these running backs. However, there's some uncertainty. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are sort of splitting work right now. I think this could be a sneaky AJ Dillon game, but I can't use him in the captain slot. So I think Aaron Jones might be sneaky in the captain slot, and Dalvin Cook as well. But he's dealing with some conditioning issues following COVID, so can't really commit to them. So I think I'm probably going to be stuck with Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson in my captain slot. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm still going Cook. Like, I think if anyone's scared of Cook, like I'm just going to use him more. Like this guy. Right. What did he last time he sat out a game? He came back and ran for 205 yards, and he wasn't even supposed to be active in that game.
The shoulder injury, right?
Yeah. But I mean, like shoulder, lung, it's all the same for Dalvin Cook. He's just nasty. I'll definitely have a lot, but I agree. I think the weather is going to kind of maybe make these teams a little more run heavy. That's not really, I don't think, a reason to pivot away from Devontae. I do think Jefferson could be a little riskier than usual because, two reasons. One, Adam Thielen's out. So with Thielen out, obviously defenses get to hone in a little more on a guy like Justin Jefferson. But number two, I saw in the transaction logs that the Packers activated Jair Alexander.
Nice.
From, he was out for pretty much almost the whole season. And he's an excellent cornerback, a true kind of number one shutdown guy. So if they have him back into any capacity, it could make it hard for Jefferson, especially in this weather. And we saw how poor the Packers' run defense was a week ago. So I still lean Cook over Jefferson for the Vikings. And it's all about Devontae for the captain spot for the Packers. I think, Jones seems to have retaken that lead back role. They kind of said they were using him or saving him for this part of the year. So I think Jones is still the guy for me if I'm going with the running back in that spot. He also gets more of the receiving usage. So I'd say if you're making Jones lineups and you enter a lot, like a bunch of multi-lineup, kind of thing, then you pivot to some with Dillon in the captain spot as like a hedge. But if I'm just picking one or the other, I'm still going Aaron Jones.
Yeah, he certainly has a higher ceiling. So they get Jair Alexander back this week, hopefully. And then is David Bakhtiari going to make his season debut? I haven't seen much news. I know he's questionable, but have you heard more about that? Because that's huge for Aaron Jones. If he can.
Let's see. I can only go by the practice reports. So let's see.
Yeah.
I know he was.
I feel like he's been nearing a return for about a month now.
Yeah, he's still he was a DNP on Wednesday. We don't have the report for Thursday. Yeah, I would guess they hold him out. I mean, Aaron Rodgers looked fine to me. It doesn't like they go like 4 deep at their tackle spot now. It's like I think Dennis Kelly, I believe it was, started last game. They had a bunch of injuries. Neiman, I think, started too. So it's just it's next man up for the Packers. I don't think they rush him back. So the fact that he didn't practice to start the week. I mean, it is a Sunday night game, but I think he's on the wrong side of questionable. At least he's listed as questionable.
Yeah, makes sense. Just getting him back for the playoffs would be massive, and it's incredible how well the Packers have played without some of their best players. They might even get a guy like Zadarius Smith back for the playoffs too. So they're getting all their guys healthy just in time for the playoffs. I agree. They probably do hold him out here, but again, if he does debut, that's going to only boost up my projection for both Jones and Dillon.
Yeah. All right. What about the cheat codes, the other guys you like a little further down, kind of filling out your lineup in the flex spots with?
Well, I always say this: anytime MVS is on a one-game slate, you have to consider him. Just his deep play threat. The weather, obviously could impact him here, but again, we're just shooting for massive upside here. So I'll have some MVS lineups. I think people will pivot towards Alan Lazard. He looked great last week. I think his rostership will be maybe a little too high here. So MVS is great play as always. I think our guy Josiah DeGuara, when you look at the Packers depth chart, it looks like Mercedes Lewis and Tyler Davis are on the COVID list. So it might be just DeGuara and Daphne potentially. So DeGuara, he's been getting some usage. I had the over on his player prop last week, so I was watching him pretty closely. He's out there running around, sometimes lined up out wide. He's getting work, but it just hasn't showed up, in a big way yet. But he could have a big game here, especially with the weather. They might, throw underneath a bit more. So love DeGuara. On the Vikings side with, Adam Thielen out, I think, and Tyler Conklin banged up, I think KJ Osborne is a sneaky blow-up spot here. I think his rostership will be pretty high, but I'm going to try to be overweight on Osborne. I think this is a good game for him. And then I agree with you with Dalvin Cook. The guy's a beast. I never want to bet against him, but I might sneak in just a couple Alexander Madison lineups just because I agree. The shoulder injury, he's a tough guy. He played through that. But these guys coming back from COVID, like Tyreek Hill last week, he was pretty limited. They said he was exhausted. He had to come out. Sounds like Mike Evans is sort of dealing with the same thing. And even Dalvin Cook to a certain extent. So in cold weather, a lung condition like COVID, I think, finally we might find something that limits Dalvin Cook. So I think Alexander Madison might be a sneaky cheat code kind of play.
I mean, I think the running backs are always sneaky on these kind of slates because if the guy gets injured, but I don't think they're going to come into the game saying we're going to give Dalvin Cook less than 90% of the snaps.
No,
Mike Zimmer's coaching for his job. Like the Chiefs, of course you can take Tyreek Hill out when you're up 30-3 and you've won 9 games in a row. Yeah, if you're the Vikings, you're literally fighting for your playoff lives against a division rival that you did beat the first time. So but now you're on the road. Like this seems like an all-in type of situation. For the Vikings. I mean, it could still end poorly, but I don't think they come into the game saying like we're gonna split the reps. I could be wrong, but I mean, it just doesn't seem like a Mike Zimmer thing. Like even that game where he was like questionable and then he plays anyway. It's like it just seems like one of those.
I agree with you 100%. But like you said, you always make a great point when you set these lineups. Kind of tells a story, and I think that we're both going to have to play the defenses on the slate.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I could see Dalvin Cook.
No, the Packers defense. That's
right. Yeah, it's hard to play defense against Aaron Rodgers. I agree.
Yeah.
But you could totally see Dalvin Cook, have a 25-30 yard rush attempt, get down to the one, and he's winded. He has to come out real quick. Alexander Madison comes in and gets the vulture touchdown. Like that's what I'm thinking here. I don't think they're going to split work. I'm just saying he could sneak in a couple like high leverage kind of plays here. Just a slate like this, like you said, backup running backs are more valuable. But I'm not envisioning a 50-50 split by any stretch. But there might be some plays where Dalvin Cook has to tap out because he's winded or something.
I'm gonna just play some of my guys, CJ Zams, Zaddy, like some CJ.
Oh, you have to.
You got to on these slates. Like if Cook takes a breather, they'll probably just hand it to him. Just
to spite me. Yeah,
that does kind of fire the team up though. Like anytime CJ Ham does anything on offense, the whole team gets fired up. So
outside of Kyle Juszczyk, CJ Ham is probably the highest fullback projection we give week to week, right? Yeah, like
I'm trying to
usually
think,
sees a couple touches.
Yeah, it's a dying breed. I hate that announcer cliche though. And they're like, the fullback does in fact still exist in the National Football League. Like anytime a fullback does anything, like on offense, like, fullbacks, they're still here. It's like, all right, we know. All right, let's get into the props, Sean. Start us off with your quarterback prop.
So I'm sticking with the same prop I gave earlier in the week. That's Josh Allen over 255.5 passing yards against the Falcons. I mentioned earlier in the week that I wanted to get on this early before, Cole Beasley, Gabe Davis might return off of these updated COVID protocols. And sure enough, they're returning this week and the line hasn't moved. I don't know why. This is an easy matchup, of course, against the Falcons, 29th ranked pass DVOA defense. And Josh Allen doesn't really let up when they're up big. So I know they're favored by 14 here. It doesn't matter. Josh Allen's usually still slinging around, running around late in the game. So I'm not too worried about game script here. So I'm still projecting him around 270 here. I think we're getting, 15 yards of value. So I love the over 255.5 yards for Josh Allen here.
Yeah, I was surprised it didn't go up a little more too. I know that the Falcons, I think their average point differential against teams above 500 is like minus 25 or something like that. So maybe it's the game script, but I was surprised it didn't climb a little higher as well. For me, I'm going Jalen Hurts over 189.5 passing yards against Washington. Hurts has been over this in 8 of 14 games, and he had 296 against Washington a couple of weeks ago. I think that, another spot where people may be concerned about game script, but the Eagles are on the road, and in the Action Network app, we have tracked 7 sharp moves on Washington here. So just because the Eagles are 3.5-point favorites doesn't necessarily mean that they're just going to control this game. We've seen them start slow the last couple of weeks against their division rivals, the Giants, Washington. So I think one way or another, whether it's due to sheer efficiency or just because it's a tight game and both teams have to kind of go back and forth, I think Hurts gets over this for the 9th time in 15 starts.
I'm surprised you didn't stick with your Trevor Lawrence prop from earlier in the week.
It dropped 15 yards. I mean, listen,
the
last thing I want to do is like give it out twice and then people like lose on the second one. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to be honest. I'm not hitting it again. Like I hit it the first time, and I didn't hit it again. But by the way, I forgot to text you. We usually text each other our second half props, but I was like rushing to get in the shower because I had gone to the gym right before the game, but I hit a 5 play again. And the 5th thing that had a hit was Ian Book over like 72 yards or something. And he got like 76. So that
was a pretty bold pick. I thought we might see Blake Bortles, but yeah, I think that Trevor Lawrence, the line dropped, but still I've been watching so many Jaguar games. Still think he goes like, I don't know. I watched almost every game.
No, I do too. I do.
But yeah, I'd be surprised if he goes over 150. But yeah, I love the Hurts call as well. I know that when it comes to like rushing projections for quarterbacks, you factor in scramble rate, and he hasn't been scrambling as much. Obviously, the ankle injuries messing him with a bit. So he's only rushed 10 times the past 2 games combined. So his passing projection should go up. So I'm with you here. Usually I'm projecting Hurts around the 185 range, but I think this is a game where we could project them a little bit over 200. So I'm in agreement with you on this one.
Yeah. And the scramble rate it affects both the rush and the pass attempts, because if he's scrambling less, that does increases. Cause I kind of start with dropbacks, and then go from there. All right. Where are you going for your first running back prop?
So the rest of the way I'm going with unders, my comfort zone actually. So I'm going with Cordell Patterson under 42.5 rushing yards against the Bills. He's struggling of late. He hasn't topped 20 yards each of the past 2 games. Is he starting to break down? He's never really been a workhorse kind of running back. So, he could be breaking down. Head coach Arthur Smith even said a couple weeks ago, he's planning on limiting veterans like Patterson down the stretch. So we could be seeing that. And, like I just mentioned in the Josh Allen prop, this is a game where the Bills should dominate throughout. They're 2 touchdown favorites here, so this isn't really a run heavy game script. So maybe they get Cordell Patterson involved in the passing game. They've kind of turned away from him in that regard over the past few games. So admittedly, I'm projecting Patterson right around this range, but late in the season, when teams are starting to limit vets like him, I kind of go beyond my projections a bit. So I just think he's more likely to have a floor game here, especially against a stout defense like the Bills. So love the under 42.5 rushing yards for CPAT.
Yeah, it's weird because his snap rate hasn't really gone down. The last 2 weeks are the 2 highest since week 10. His snap counts, if it's not the percentage, 25 last week was his lowest in about a month. So they're probably trying to limit the snaps, maybe that 25 to 30 range is what I'm thinking. So yeah, and that offensive line just isn't getting any push. And he's become that between the tackles runner. Now we're seeing Davis have more success because they've almost flip-flop roles a little bit. So yeah, I hate betting under on my guy Patterson.
Yeah,
I've tried to go over and it hasn't worked out the last, I think, couple of weeks, but I can't argue with it. It's just the line doesn't look good. He doesn't look good. He's getting the goal line carries. That's about it. So
yeah, it's good for fantasy.
Yeah, if you're in fantasy, I think he's still like an RB20 in that range for me. It's still
he's close. So he's nearing that sit start decision where before he's been like a rock solid RB1 for most of the season, but now he's kind of on that sit start cusp. during finals week, which is rough.
Yeah, but I mean, after watching that Isaiah McKenzie tape, you can't let McKenzie one up him like this. He's got to get back in the fold.
Yep.
I'll stick in the same game and go Devin Singletary over 50.5 rushing yards against the Falcons. He's played over 80% of the snaps, in total in the last 3 games. So he's really taking control of that lead back role. The numbers haven't always been there because they played that game against Tampa where he was out there a ton, but they just didn't run the ball. So this game, 14.5 point favorite at home against the Falcons. This is a spot where I think it's extremely run heavy. He's averaging 17 carries per game in his last 2. So I think he should be able to clear this pretty easily with a margin. I have him in the mid 60s for this game, given the projected game script and all that. So Singletary over 50.5.
Yeah, I agree with that one. It doesn't really correlate with my Allen prop. I think both players go over, and you're swooping in on one of my 1 week too early props. Last week it was Josh Jacobs. So the week prior, I loved over, what was it, like 52.5, and he finished with 50. The whole game was frustrating because he should have cleared that like easily. And then sure enough, last week he rushed for 130 or something crazy like that. Last week I took Singletary over 41.5. He finished with 39. So, this week would not be surprised if he clears like 80. So again, I think I was 1 week too early. So congrats on swooping in on what should be an easy win here.
Where are you going with your second one?
So I'm sticking with unders here. So going with under 52.5 rushing yards for Saquon Barkley against the Bears. We kind of, built up our bankroll early in the season by, betting on his unders. But late in the season, I'm sticking with it. And, my projection immediately, again, it's pretty close to this line. I'm around 48, 49 here. But again, I think we're going to see more of a floor game from him. We're getting late in the season where we might see players like Barkley limited, and he's dealing with an ankle issue that's sort of limiting him in practice. So there's no reason for them to, give him 15 to 20 carries here. So I'm just banking on him having more of a floor game. And, they're going to have some sort of combination of Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon under center this week. It was not pretty last week. He kind of needs the offense to move the ball a little bit to clear a prop like this. So this isn't a game script where I think it's going to, be run heavy for too long. So I think, this is another thing where I'm just more attacking the floor of Barkley being more likely this week. So under 52.5 rushing yards for Barkley here.
And there's probably even if he goes off for 200 yards in this game, we could still take a victory lap for telling everyone not to draft Saquon Barkley. He's had 4 games this whole year where he's cleared 10 half PPR points. 4 games all year. That's and he's been healthy, for what is it? He's played in, I think 11 games. He's played in 11 games. He's missed 4 and he's still cleared 10 points in half PPR and 4. So I mean, first round pick.
I didn't bring this up when I was sitting there touting the prop. I didn't bring it up, but he's only cleared this number 3 times all season.
52.5. 3 times all season. He's at 52 and 51 and 50. So it's close, but he hasn't been, there's no explosion there. There's no explosion.
His biggest game was 16 carries for 64 yards on the ground.
Yeah. There's no, I should not say explosion. It's like acceleration. He just can't get away and break those long ones anymore. That's at least not, maybe it happens next year. It's not happening this year. All right. For my second, I'm going Joe Mixon over 64.5 rushing yards. He's been over this in 8 of 15. He averages 77. And Kansas City, their pass defense has improved drastically over these last couple of months, but their run defense is still 21st. Cincinnati's at home, and they're another team drawing a lot of sharp action, which I agree with. I'm going to be on Cincinnati this weekend as a home dog. So, you might look at it and say they're, 5-6 point underdogs. Bad game script, but I think it's going to be closer than that. They're at home, and I think their game plan is going to be, whether that's in theory true, they're going to try to limit the time Mahomes is on the field by controlling the time of possession, running the ball, and they'll be able to because defenses have to respect Burrow after the 525, the cool 525 last week. Had the over on the pod here. I wish I got double points for him doubling up the prop. But I'm going Mixon this week over 64.5. I think that's going to be the game plan. Just a lot of Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I agree. I think the floor for his rush attempts has to be what, 17, 18. And we could see one of those patented, like, 29 to 30 rush attempts here. Because even earlier in the season, when Jamar Chase is going up, they still committed to the run game. So in this matchup, I do agree. I think Cincinnati +4 or +3.5 right now, probably a good bet. So this game's gonna be closer than people think. And yeah, Mixon has a really high floor. So I like the over here as well.
It's +5.5.
+5.5 now. Oh,
Yeah, I'm waiting
I
for the
might
6. Like Stuck and I are just gonna wait for the 6.
I might
at this
have
point.
to steal this from you on Convince Me.
I mean, that one definitely does stick out.
Yeah.
So, it's, yeah, my point is Mixon, good bet to go over his prop. He's been over
Yep.
it more than half the time anyway. And where are you going for your first receiving prop?
So I'm going Darnell Mooney under 49.5 receiving yards against the Giants. So it sounds like Allen Robinson is returning. He should be close to 100%. And possibly Jakeem Grant could return too. So that's going to eat into Mooney's target share. And in a game where I just mentioned, we're going to have Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon under center on the other side. I don't really see the Bears getting in a situation where they need to throw much. So I think here they're going to just lean on the run game, their defense, and possibly, Justin Fields will be under center. So usually that limits the passing projection for the Bears. So all signs sort of point for Mooney, going under this. So I'm projecting this closer to 43.5 and love the under 49.5 receiving yards for Darnell Mooney against the Giants.
Yeah, it just seems like one of those ugly games. They probably won't trail like they did against Seattle, even, or at home, 6-point favorites. The total is like 37. So it shouldn't be a big passing type of situation there. I'm going with Marvin Jones under 45.5 receiving yards against the Patriots. Talked about this earlier in the week. He's been under this more than half the time. New England's second in DVOA against number 1 wide receivers. They're 7th against number 2 wide receivers. So I'm projecting this under 40. You already mentioned Trevor Lawrence. His number has come down, but Jones's hasn't yet. So I think you take advantage of that, because the way passing yards work is the less passing yards, the less of a percentage for each of the receivers. So if Lawrence's line drops by 15, that should tell you something. Jones' line should not still be sitting here at the same number. So I don't expect him to get a quarter of the yardage for Lawrence in a game where the Patriots probably look at him as the guy you have to slow down the most. So Jones under 45.5.
Yeah. I was giving you crap earlier for not sticking with the Lawrence prop, but at least that line went down 15 yards. This one should have gone down as well. Like you said, they're correlated. And yeah, I think Marvin Jones is going to be the player that Belichick tries to slow down. It could be Treadwell, but either way, Marvin Jones, super, super low floor here, more likely to hit his floor. So love the under 45.5 as well.
Belichick's never lost to a rookie quarterback at home, ever.
I think that trend's going to continue this week.
Imagine really, it's like another 9-6 Jaguar upset or something like that.
Oh, no way. I don't think that's like, it wouldn't surprise me, obviously, this season, but I still don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, the Patriots have that game against Houston and Davis Mills where they almost blew it. That Belichick, I'm sure he's showing that film and like nothing else this week. It's just you almost blew this game to Davis Mills.
And they're coming off 2 losses. Yep. So I don't think they're going to overlook the Jaguars here. No way.
All right. Last receiving prop.
So I'm going with Terry McLaurin under 53.5 receiving yards against the Eagles. So, he hasn't cleared this since week 11, and he hasn't seen over 20% targets per route run rate since then either. Just, he's the clear cut number 1 pass catcher in this offense, but they're spreading it around. And this is a tough matchup. He should see a ton of Darius Slay. It's a late season division game. So I don't really see McLaurin going over this. And we're getting some conflicting reports. Ron Rivera is saying he wants to see Kyle Allen get some action this week. Offensive coordinator Scott Turner is saying that's false. So who knows what's going on there, but we could see 2 quarterbacks play. That's going to hurt Terry McLaurin. So it's just one of those things late in the season. I like attacking unders on a player like McLaurin, who should be, exceeding this every week, but for some reason he isn't. So I'm projecting him closer to 45.5 and more likely to hit his floor here. So give me Terry McLaurin under 53.5 receiving yards.
Ron Rivera and Scott Turner are having a disagreement. They should just settle it the good old Washington football team way. Just duke it out on the sideline, challenge each other to a duel or something, somebody punches somebody in the face and then we just go from there.
A lot of bad chemistry going on over there.
Yeah. For my last receiving prop, I'm going with my guy, Rob Gronkowski, over 49.5 receiving yards. I'm not panicking after 2 duds. He's going against the Jets. They are dead last in DVOA against tight ends. He's still been over this in 6 out of 10 games, even with playing 1 game like hurt and leaving early, and then another 2 where the last 2 where he had under 30 yards. So, this is variance. It's tight ends. I expect him to be on the right side of that. And I think this prop, given the matchup, given the absence likely of Evans alongside Godwin, I just think this number is way too low here for the Bucs, who are 13-point favorites against the Jets. It's a game where they're probably going to put up some points either way. They are 5-0 against teams that currently have under 6 wins this year, and they're putting up over 30 points a game. I think Gronk's going to be a big part of that. So Rob Gronkowski over 49.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I like this one as well. And even if Mike Evans returns, which it sounds like he might, he could just be more of a decoy, which would only help Gronk. And it seems like, the past couple of games when Gronk's been sort of the guy, he's flopped. So I think if Evans returns, I don't even think it would impact this. It might even help him. So either way, I think Gronk bounces back here and clears the over 49.5 yards as well.
The only way this, it's Brady. It's, if Brady's on the COVID list, then there's a problem.
Oh,
not,
yeah.
I don't like Gronk, Godwin. It's really,
don't even put that out in the universe.
Man, imagine. I mean, that's probably why they relaxed the protocols. Like, oh, God forbid. But
especially like playoff time. Imagine Super Bowl week, something like that. Oh,
you'd have to just push the Super Bowl back.
Yeah.
For Brady, imagine it happened last year in Tampa. Like, oh, that would have been.
Hopefully we get a clean Super Bowl. Let's just put it that way.
Long way to go, though. Sean, just recap your props. Yeah.
So at quarterback, I'm going with Josh Allen over 255.5 passing yards. Then I'm going under 42.5 rushing yards for Cordell Patterson. And I'm going under 52.5 rushing yards for Saquon Barkley. I'm going with Darnell Mooney under 49.5 receiving yards. And Terry McLaurin under 53.5 receiving yards.
There you go. I'm going Jalen Hurts over 189.5 passing yards. Devin Singletary over 50.5 rushing yards. Joe Mixon over 64.5 rushing yards. Marvin Jones under 45.5 receiving yards. And Rob Gronkowski over 49.5 receiving yards. That's going to do it for our Fantasy Flex Week 17 Props podcast presented by PrizePicks. That's a lot of P's. Jeez. You can find us on Twitter, Sean at @_oddsmaker, me at Chris Raybon. You can find our fantasy content rankings, projections at actionnetwork.com. And you can find our DFS content tools and models at fantasylabs.com. You can also follow us in the free award-winning Action Network app at @_oddsmaker and at Chris Raybon, same as our Twitter handles. Until next time, Happy New Year. Let's get this money.